Hi, I'm Anna from Astral Tarot in Amsterdam. Let's talk about the Thoth Tarot. I'm having a Thoth moment. You probably already know that. In my latest video I trimmed a Thoth, which is this one right here. And I also talked about working with the three big systems, if you will. Like the three best known systems, which means the Rider Waite Smith, the Thoth, and the Marseille. And I'm using the Trionfi Della Paradoxical edition. So for that, it's not exactly the traditional Marseille, but I do still see any Marseille as traditional because that is the oldest tarot system that I work with. I am having a lot of fun with the Thoth. I finished the Book of Thoth and I am currently reading it again to make even more precise notes, better references, because, well, I have highlighted some stuff, but definitely not really everything. And I still definitely feel like a Thoth rookie, so these are just my thoughts so far. Okay, first, let's start with the deck that started it all, my love for the Thoth. This deck was gifted to me, and it's a standard version of the AGM. These are the backs, and they are the Dutch version. This is where my love for the Thoth started, basically. Then I also have, which you can see in my latest video, my trimmed version, which is a simple AGM Mueller large Thoth. It came out nice, and it's definitely way more busy and colorful than any other deck that I own, especially without the borders. But the reason I took off the borders was because I wanted to see how I read with it without the keywords. Now, it's only been like 2 days since I've done that. 2 or 3 days, maybe 4. What is time, right? But it's so funny because the minute I trimmed off the borders, I was working with them in my mind, with all of the cards that I know by heart, like futility, right? I mean, I don't know everything, but this would be strife, and this would be valor, I believe. Yes, I mean, I know them in English. I know this one, disappointment. I know them in English, and I know teleurstelling in Dutch. And I know this is called failure. For instance, futility. I don't know what that is in Dutch. I know what it means, but I would have to actually look it up. Or, well, obviously, use this deck. It's so strange. The whole idea of trimming off the borders is so that I would read with it more intuitively, or more like a Marseille, or more with like the whole tarot overall knowledge that I have so far, because I don't see the Seven of Pentacles as failure, for instance. I mean, the Book of Thoth is a great book. I really feel that, and it explains that extremely well, what Crowley means by putting that keyword on that card, but it's not all that, you know, it's not, of course it cannot be. We all know by now tarot is the entirety of life itself, in a way. Does that sound too dramatic? But I think that's what it is. One keyword for a tarot card is not nearly enough. Those were the decks. Now let me show you the books. You should see my floor right now. All cards and books, and wow. This is the book I got together with my deck. And as you can see, I have read it through and through and have been referencing it, and it's actually pretty good. It's by, you know, Gerd, Ziegler. Yeah, it's pretty good, and it's in Dutch, which actually helps. Yeah, and it's very comprehensive. Then, of course, as I showed you, the Book of Thoth, and then I also have this one, which honestly I haven't started reading yet. And I also have another Liber and another Liber and all of the Libers. And I am not nearly... this is just scratching the surface. Of course I have the Book of Thoth, so that is... I shouldn't say scratching the surface, obviously. But I have more books that I want to read because that Thoth spark is on right now. And I am using it in reading tarot. It's not just about systems. It has never been about systems for me. When I started learning Marseille, it was all about understanding the deeper level of tarot, because I started with Rider Waite Smith. And I'm incorporating that, you know, no matter what deck I read with. Obviously, the imagery and symbols within the images bring up different things, different sides of the cards, but you know all sides. And knowing these three systems at least, as far as I know, really give you a kind of whole energy. I'd say it does bring up different perspectives of the same cards, which is, I'm all about that. That is the way that I read. I want to see the shadow, I want to see the light, I want to see the ill-dignified, I want to see the opposite of that, whatever that is. I want to see, right? Yeah. One little thing, though, that I've noticed in this book, it's just a teeny tiny little thing, it's alright, it's really okay. What I've noticed is, I'll do my best in translating this. So here it says, of course, it's just one sentence in a whole text, but just listen to this. A woman will only attain inner and outer harmony after integrating her male side. So, I kind of hate it. Yeah. I'm just at a loss for words, I guess. I wrote down, what about the Emperor? Because I read through the Emperor. I was like, okay, let's see if a similar idea is in the little text for the Emperor, and it's not. Nowhere to be found. So I'm like, what? Are you telling me that men are fully integrated and that women have to find their male side in order to be fully integrated and in harmony? So, I mean, I guess I can make something out of it that would make sense for me, as in we, in a symbolic way, women or femininity, even though we are not, of course, talking about that anymore on a daily basis, but women and femininity in a symbolic way, again, really represents the receptive side of things. And I guess for the Emperor, which is a male energy, so men do have that active side. And so perhaps in order to fully express oneself, one needs to also use the active side in order to, well, as I said, express yourself. But honestly, that's not what it says here, and I don't really know what to make of it. Anyway, I wrote down the exact same sentence right here for the Emperor. Every man can only find inner and outer harmony after integrating his female side. So, tell me if I interpreted that sentence wrong, or if it's just translated in a strange way. But, yeah, kind of like the only thing I didn't like about this book, because honestly, it's really good. And I guess it's Crowley's words in a way. Enough about that. Okay, I said it a while ago. Once I get to know the court cards in the Thoth, I will be at home with this deck. And I still believe that. Now, I have found, of course, again, disclaimer, I am a Thoth rookie, right? So there's this year-long debate about whether the knights or the princes of the Thoth are associated with the knights or the kings of the Rider Waite Smith. I'm not going to pretend to teach you anything, but just a thought. A thing that I have found that I'm like, well, I think that's just the way that it is. So I will just share that idea with you. The queens are the queens. They are the only courts that don't change name, don't change position in a way. Good for them. Aren't they great? They are. And also in the Trionfi Della Luna, by the way, but I only have two hands. So, queens, we don't have to talk about. They stay the same. Pages in the Rider Waite Smith are in the same spot, because I cannot say any more now, knowing about the Thoth courts, that they are the same. pages are not the same as princesses in the Thoth, but they are in the same spot, and they have the same, you could say, they relate to earth, the element of earth, but then there's also spirit, but they are in the same spot in the, I don't want to say hierarchy, because I don't like that idea ever, but they just relate to the pages. So those two are out of the way. And then we have knights and princes. So what's what? Let's start with what I know really well. Element of earth, pentacles. We're not talking about that. We're talking about what elements the knight have and what elements the kings have. So I see the knights as fire and the kings as air. Knowing this, as a Rider Waite Smith reader, it was strange to see a knight and then a prince, because what is a prince if we have a princess? And so yes, the princes and the princesses in the Thoth, they are the children of the queen and the king, which we will talk about later. They are twins, and alright, so that's how they relate. But not only, because in the Thoth courts, there is a lot of movement, not only in the artwork, but also in the idea. They are not set in their spot. They move, they change, they transition. And so the whole idea, as far as I understand it, is that the prince eventually grows up and becomes a knight. The knight becomes the king, and the princess grows up and becomes the queen, and she must find her knight. So that's a little rambly and won't make sense to everyone, and I probably also didn't explain it very well, but the Book of Thoth says that the knights have the element of fire and the princes have the element of air. So my mind immediately went to this. The knights relate to the knights and the princes relate to the kings. I believe that both of these following statements are correct. The knights relate to the knights and the kings relate to the princes. But also this, the king Rider Waite Smith relates to the knight of the Thoth, and the knight of the Rider Waite Smith relates to the prince of the Thoth. Both of these statements are correct, I believe. And that is why we're having this decade-long debate with each other of what corresponds to what. So look, this is the elemental correspondence. Fire with fire, air with air. But this way is also true, because the king has his queen. But in the Thoth, I can't find her right now, let's use another queen. Just pretend this is the Queen of Pentacles. The queen of the Thoth is with her knight, because the knight is, like Crowley described his fool, that he is a stranger from another land, becoming a knight. Am I making this up? It comes from somewhere. And he becomes a knight to win over the princess, and so the princess becomes a queen, and he is a knight and he shall be king. Again, pretend this is discs. The queen and the knights in the Thoth are together. And so that would mean that this is correct, because in the Rider Waite Smith, the queen is with her king. That is why you can say that the king relates to the knight, but also the knight relates to the knight, because of the elements in this case. Wow, this was so much clearer on paper and in my mind than how I'm presenting things now, but I think this is what makes sense. I am done with trying to compare these two systems, especially regarding the courts, because they are completely different, okay? What I like about the Thoth is, well, they are amazingly beautiful. But also, I mean, they have princesses, and so they depict an equal amount of men and women. And in the Rider Waite Smith, I've always seen the pages as a feminine energy, but they do depict men in the end. So I guess this does make more sense. And it's not like a family, it's not like a hierarchy, it's not... They are fluent, and that is really magical. Next, you all know how much I love my Rider Waite Smith. Okay? But there's something about the court cards of the Thoth. I'm not saying I prefer them, but I am saying, oh, this is such harsh criticism. And please forgive me, all Rider Waite Smith lovers. But there's something that I've noticed. Here we have our Queen of Swords of the Rider Waite Smith. Now I love her, I get her, I know her. Yet what we are seeing in this depiction, that again, I love. I'm going to stop saying that now, you get it. Okay, what we are seeing is a human being sitting on a throne on the earth. There's trees, and there are clouds in the background, and she has a sword, and she is pointing towards a direction, and that's what we're seeing. Stay with me. In the Thoth, she is up in the clouds. She is so close to her element. She is the watery part of air, because swords is air. She is not human. She is the watery part of air. She is that energy. That's what we're seeing here. She is magic. She is of the cosmos. The Thoth deck so far feels more of the cosmos than the Rider Waite Smith. And here comes the actually harsh criticism. I almost don't want to say this, I almost don't want to post this, but I think it needs to be said. Coming from a Rider Waite Smith lover, alright? This, to me, now, looks like a human in a costume cosplaying the actual Queen of Swords. And I have that with all of the courts right now. Because look, these guys, they are not on Earth. Unless they are Earth, and still, it's another dimension, isn't it? Hope you see what I mean. That hurt a little bit. I think you do see it. I mean, she looks way more like a human than she does. Yeah, I couldn't help but imagining this as a human being in a costume, in a setting, someone taking her picture or something, and then this actually being the actual true energy, the actual true empress. Honestly, the Rider Waite Smith is hashtag tarot so white. White people. Thoth, he's not white, he's red. He is a hierophant, he's a cosmic energy. Of course, there are no people in the pip cards because they are pips, but here we don't see the color of his skin. She is green. You see what I mean? So, having these cosmic, by lack of a better word, I don't know, energies in this deck rather than people that look like actual human beings, it kind of like solves the issue, well, it doesn't have an issue, of showing only one part of humanity. I feel that I'm explaining myself so badly in this video, but this is what it is, and I hope you get it. Now, I have the Thoth to complete my essential tarot collection, and to have a deeper understanding of the tarot in a whole, because it's a whole big thing. We all know that. I'm just kind of trying to say, I don't believe it will replace the Rider Waite Smith or the Marseille. It's just a part of my tarot practice. Alright, next. Let's get back to this one. I have yet to learn everything about the Kabbalah. Let's just put it that way. If you're watching and thinking, hey, I know the best book, I would like to dive a little deeper into that. The thing is, I have learned the numerological way of understanding the pips, the numbers. Let me get this card again. Crowley explains the 7, for instance, as a very weak number. And I've always seen it as a very strong number. But of course, I think he's relating to its place in the tree of life. I think in order to understand truly what he is saying and not only seeing it as the shadow side of the card, I'd like to dive deeper into that. Because look, it's really simple. It's the Chariot to me is very strong. And in the Marseille, we also learned that you have a strong base of the 4 coming from the Emperor. That's you. You know who you are. You know your strength. You know you are kind of like a rock. And then you add the element of growth, of the Empress, of creation. That together makes kind of like a spring. Then that element of movement comes into place. That makes it a very strong number. That comes from the Chariot, which is a very strong card. But then all the minors, all the 7s in Thoth, are failure. He explains it as a weak number. And I would like to know why that is exactly. Next, I'm enjoying about the Thoth the fact that I can see the true element in every card. So let me explain. Yeah, here, the Ace of Wands. I know Wands is fire, but there's no fire around. And then finally you get to see my Trionfi de la Luna. We're talking about pips only. I know cups is water. Honestly, in a traditional Marseille, this cup would be closed with something that looks like a pentacle. But you can't see inside the cups. If you look really closely, in traditional Marseille there would also be water. But it's not that obvious. In the Thoth, it is. So there's the whole thing of each and every card in the Thoth being completely different. Different colors, different cups. The wands are never the same. The swords are different. The cups are always different. But we get to see the element. So here, this would be fire. Here, all of these geometric shapes in the background. You can see those in every card of the swords. They mean energies and thought, and I kind of see it as electricity in the air as well. I really do enjoy seeing those. I love this 10 of Cups. It's very strong. There is one thing, though, about especially the 10s. Must say, I have noticed, and I have to, reread it as I'm doing it now. The Book of Thoth is expressing a lot of, I feel, more negative sides, if you will, than the positive. For instance, the 10 of Cups, which I see as a mostly positive card. Let me just read it to you, because there's more than one entry about the numbers. The 10 of Cups. This card represents a conflicting element. On the other hand, it receives the influence of the 10, Malka, the Virgin. The arrangement of the cups is that of the tree of life, but on the other hand, they are themselves unstable. They are tilted. They spill the water from the great lotus which overhangs the whole system from one into the other. The work proper to water is complete, and disturbance is due. This comes from the influence of Mars in Pisces. Mars is the gross, violent, and disruptive force which inevitably attacks every supposed perfection. His energy displays the greatest possible contrast with that of Pisces, which is both peaceful and spiritualized. Yeah, so there's the astrological aspect of it as well, which honestly has never really interested me that much, but I guess it's a good thing to know with this deck. Just diving a little deeper into that. I guess that's it for me so far with my journey with the Thoth. I think that's enough for today about the Thoth. Let me know, please, if you have some books that I can reference. The absolute best book that I can read after these. I mean, I have a few on my shelf that are written by Crowley. This is my journey with the Thoth so far. I'm enjoying it a lot. I do, as you may have heard in the end, have a lot of questions, but also, most of all, it's, I would say, interesting. I do feel that this deck is fire. I can't help it. There's so much talk of the will. It's definitely an active element. And it's too crazy to be air. This is it for today. Leave a comment and subscribe if you want. Apparently I'm supposed to remind you of that, so go ahead and do that. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.